We are in the second week of our Habits series, which is one of those things that we like to teach through every year or two. And here's what is always amusing to me, is I hate acronyms, except for this one. This is the only acronym I like in my entire life, Habits, because it's actually a useful tool for what it is. And what it is spiritual habits or spiritual disciplines that are necessary for us to pursue God well, right? And when we talk about what does it mean to go after Jesus? What does it mean to pursue God well? And there's certain spiritual disciplines that really help us do that. And so over these 6 weeks, we're talking about these spiritual disciplines. Last week, Ben kicked us off by looking at the H in habits, having time with God or hang time with God, essentially quiet time, like making sure that we prioritize having some regular time with God. Today, we're going to look at the A, which is accountability. B is Bible study. I is involvement in church, not just the student ministry, but being involved in a church. T is tithing, which is fancy Bible word for giving back to God. And S is the sacraments, which is another fancy word for spiritual practices that Jesus instituted for us to follow him with, which for us, we believe the two big sacraments are, does anybody know what they are? Sam? Yeah, baptism and communion. Baptism and communion, the Lord's Supper. And so these are spiritual disciplines, spiritual habits that can make a huge difference in our lives as we pursue God. But today, we're looking specifically at accountability. Which accountability, it's a word that we use a little bit these days, not so much, but it's really about when we talk about the Christian life, being accountable as a Christian means being willing to account or accept responsibility for your actions to God and to other Christian friends as you pursue Jesus, right? It's that we help each other do this. Being held accountable by others means that they're speaking into our lives, we're speaking into their lives. We're kind of helping each other stay on target of this goal of pursuing Jesus. And there's a passage in Galatians where Paul really dives into what this looks like practically. And that's what I want to look at today. In Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, it says, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin," it's such a dramatic way of saying, hey, if another believer is just really starting to do some stuff they shouldn't be doing. Look, we're all going to screw up sometimes, right? Nobody's perfect. Not even me. Not one person is shocked. That really hurt my feelings. We're all going to mess up periodically. That's not what Paul is talking about, right? We all sin. Paul is talking about, man, if somebody is being overcome by a specific sin, they just keep doing the same thing over and over, right? Dear brothers, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You're not that important. Paul is brutal sometimes. You're not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. Do you see what Paul is getting at here? He's going, look, together we can pursue Jesus better. Together we're able to help each other do this thing. And as we're trying to wrap our heads around what it looks like to hold each other accountable, what exactly is McNutt trying to tell us to do today on a Sunday morning early? The Norway's out of the World Cup. We're kind of bummed. But I think there's three insights or three specific things that I want to zero in on from this passage in Galatians that help us out, that we can learn from this passage. And the first one is this: accountable friendships bring healing. Accountable friendships bring healing. And what do I mean by that? It's primarily emotional healing, right? Spiritual healing. But I think there can even be an element of physical healing to this, and you'll see where I'm going with that in a moment. But looking back at the first part of this passage, what Paul wrote, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path." Right? And what I have felt the benefit of this so many times over the years is there is a healing power when we let someone else in on our struggles. I'm not saying everybody, like you shouldn't just go around and be like, "Hey, everybody, blah, 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 blah." But going to a few trusted people or a trusted individual or mentor or someone that is spiritually mature and can help guide you, and confiding in them can bring real spiritual healing to you, right? Because hiding hurts and failures from those around us creates a lot of anxiety and stress. How many of you have had like a secret or something going on that you were struggling with that you didn't tell anyone about, and not like keeping that secret created more anxiety and stress than even just that problem did? A few of you brave people. After I said that, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have asked for a show of hands on that, because then it's like, yeah. I know for me, there was once years ago, I was under a lot of stress and I was feeling a lot of frustration and I was just overwhelmed and things were eating at me and they were beating up on me. And I went to our dentist, and I was like in college. I was like 20, 21 years old at the time. And the dentist was a family friend, and as he's doing the appointment, he says to me, he's like, "Hey, Matthew, like, is everything okay?" I was like, "This is a really weird question." And he goes, "Is everything okay?" And I go, what do you mean? He was like, "Well, your gums are acting like someone who's under a lot of stress." And I go, "What?" He was like, yeah. When people are under a lot of stress or anxiety or frustration, like it can affect your gums. I was like, what the heck? Because I already knew I had a whole irritable stomach thing going on, right? That I was having an upset stomach all the time because of my stress. And like I saw some of my hair was falling out. I was like, this is like killing my whole body. Like, what is going on? And what I'm saying is, like, we kind of know that stress and anxiety can take a physical toll on our body. And here's the thing is that sometimes when we go to somebody and go, "Man, this is what's going on in my life right now. This is what's overwhelming me. This is what's frustrating me. This is stressing me out. This is," it doesn't just bring spiritual healing, right? That level of vulnerability produces healing power because a trusted Christian friend can demonstrate to you tangibly God's love and his forgiveness and his acceptance. And that allows us to kind of feel the forgiveness God is already giving us. But it also kind of releases this tension and this anxiety that's building up in us from keeping the secret. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I've kept those kinds of secrets, part of my fear is that if people knew, they would hate me. Like, they would be so disgusted. They would be so like disappointed. They would be so, all of these different things. And vividly, when I was in college, around that time, I finally broke down and went to a mentor and confessed everything that was going on in my life. Like every sin, every thought, everything, all the different things. And I genuinely believed in that moment, when I tell this person this stuff, they're going to write me off. They're going to be so disgusted with me. They're going to be so disappointed. But I was like, I just can't keep these secrets anymore. And that person thanked me for sharing that, for trusting them. They told me they loved me. They expressed like all of the things they appreciate. And it was such a healing moment for me, spiritually, right? Like, it helped me push through. And that's the moment I really started coming back to God and pursuing God. And you know, that's a whole other story. And some of you have heard me talk before about how I kind of came back to faith in college. But it also affected me physically, like releasing all that stuff. Even though just one person knew, my stomach calmed down. My gums started getting better. I don't know. Like, it was a whole thing. And so I go, man, there is a power in accountable friendships of helping us feel healing. And I think part of that key is in there, Paul is going, hey, do this gently and humbly, right? Because two, accountable friendships require humility. For powerful healing to be the outcome of these accountable relationships, it takes humility on both sides, right? Because for the person that's getting accountability, it takes a lot of humility to admit the junk that's going on in our life. It takes humility to express what we're struggling with, what we're navigating. It also takes humility to be the person hearing that. Because, man, like the quickest accountability killer ever is to be judgmental or harsh to someone that needs some accountability help. To be like, I'm so much better. Like, if you could just be like me, dude, then you'd be following Jesus, right? Like, I can't believe you screwed up with that, man. There's so many ways, right? And Paul even warns about it in this passage. He goes, be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Because the reality is we're all imperfect. We're all sinners. We all screw up. And so it takes a certain amount of humility of if Matt comes to me and he's talking to me something, he's going, hey, Matt, I need some help with this. I need to confess this is going on in my life. There's a certain reality of like, I'm an imperfect, broken human being. And if I haven't done that sin already at some point in my life, there's a chance that I might fall to that same temptation myself. And so Paul is going, hey, be loving, be humble. None of us are perfect. As judgmental as I might feel tempted to be to someone, I remember one time years ago, there were some kids that in this youth group that everybody found out their junk. There was some stuff going on. Everybody found out about it. And there was another dude who was being like super judgmental. Like, I can't believe they call themselves Christians. They do this and blah, 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 blah. And I had to pull him aside and be like, dude, the only difference between them and you is I'm the only one. I had an accountability relationship with him. I was like, I'm the only one that knows your junk and everyone knows their junk. But it's the same junk, man. Like, if everybody knew, and it was kind of this humbling moment for him of going, what are you doing, man? Like, you're being judgmental, and the only difference is everyone knows they did it and nobody knows you did, except for me, right? Because we had an accountability thing in place. So humility is important, right? Because we can't be walking around going, man, like, I can't believe they did that. I'm so much better. If people could be like me. We need to be humble. And part of that humility and gentleness and kindness is in Philippians 2, 3 through 4, where Paul says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Right? Why? Because there's this reoccurring thing in Scripture that we're supposed to be looking out for each other. That it's not just supposed to be like, I'm trying to be as good of a Christian as I can be. It's that I should be looking at Andrew and going like, man, I want Andrew to be as good of a Christian as he can be. And Andrew should be looking at me going, I want McNutt to be as good of a Christian as he can be. Why? Because if we understand the gift it is to know Jesus and follow Jesus, we should want others to experience that as well. So we're looking out for each other's best. These accountable relationships are not about being judgmental or one-upping each other or having power over each other. It's about, man, I genuinely want the best for this other person, so I'm going to humbly hope for and guide and nudge them towards their best. And I hope they're doing the same for me. The third big thing that jumps out at me is accountable friendships are a team sport. Could you imagine World Cup? It's all over the TV right now. Could you imagine if there was like one player on a team? Everybody says Messi's the best. He's amazing, right? But could you imagine if Messi was just like, I don't even need the rest of the team. I'm just going to win this game. I'm going to win the whole World Cup. I'm going to go do my thing. Like, as amazing as he is, Messi on his own against a team that maybe even got eliminated earlier in the world, Messi doesn't have a chance. Right? Because it's a team sport. We do this together. When I was in high school, I went to a boarding school in South America. Some of you have heard about that before. Desert climb is a whole deal. And every year we used to do this field day weekend. And we would divide the entire school, kindergarten through 12th grade, into two teams, red and white, that would compete against each other in a series of competitions over the course of 2 or 3 days. And it was a whole big deal. And we'd all be competing. Everybody was cheering for everybody, blah, 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 blah. And the biggest event over the weekend, we did everything. It was soccer, basketball, tug of war, shot put, like all the sprints and races and relays and all of the things, all of the track and field things, and a bunch of other sports. The most popular event, the one that we talked about all year around, was the cross-country race, which is so weird because you don't even get to watch 95% of it, right? It's like, and it happened really early on the Saturday morning. Everybody would get up stupid early because it was desert climbing, get really hot later in the day. So we do it in the morning, and the cross-country racers would line up, and they would take off, and it was legitimately, it was a cross-country race. It wasn't like these nice races. It was down like this dirt road. For some reason, the first part of it was all downhill. So then the last part is all uphill. That stinks. And then the next third was this dry riverbed. It's just crazy, a mile of a dry riverbed with all the rocks and stones and the whole thing. And you couldn't go outside the riverbed because of all the cactuses and all the whatever. And then the last third was just uphill back to the starting point. And everybody talked about the cross-country race. We talked about the times and all the crazy things people had done over the years to try and win it or set records. And I remember my first year, I was a sophomore at the school. Well, I went to school for 3 years. My family moved down. And the first year, I was like, that would be really cool. And I was like, I am wildly out of shape. This is not an option. And so I didn't do it. But then I watched. I saw the buzz and everybody talking about it all year. And there was a part of me that was like, man, I wish I had done it. And rolled around to my junior year. And field day, they were starting to, and I was like, I could have maybe done it my junior year. I had been living in South America for a year at that point. Our PE class was just crazy how they'd run us around. It was insane. How they worked, it was super aggressive and all this stuff. And I was like, if I had pushed a little harder, I could have gotten in shape for the cross-country race. And I wanted to do it, and I was like, I should do it. And I was like, nah, I didn't do it. And my senior year rolls around. And because here's the thing, it was the most talked about thing, but it was also like the lowest participation rate. Everybody talked about it, but some years, it would just be a few people. Maybe a big year, 6 or 7 people. I didn't even do that on purpose. I know, you saw that, but it wasn't on purpose. Everybody talked about only a few people that actually do it. Senior year rolls around, and I was like, if I don't do it this year, I'm just never going to do it. Like, I'm never going to get to do it. Anybody ever feel that pressure about something? Yeah, a little bit. And so senior year rolls around, I was like, this is it. I got to do it. I got to get in shape. And so I had 2 good friends, Lauren and Chicho. His name wasn't actually Chicho, that was his nickname. I said to Lauren Chicho, I was like, hey, Lauren Chicho, because it was a name and nickname. I was like, I really want to do the cross-country race. You guys want to do the cross-country race? And they were like, yeah, maybe. And I was like, you guys want to train together? I didn't know it, but I was forming an accountability relationship. I would have never used that label when I was 16, 17 years old. And I just kind of did it again. Senior year, I was 17. So we formed an accountability relationship. Every day we trained. We used to run the route of the cross-country race to practice and get it. And here's what would happen is some days, most days, I didn't actually want to train. And Lauren and or Chicho would verbally abuse me and slap me around a bit and be like, what are you talking about, McNutt? This was your stupid idea. Let's go. And so then we would train. And every once in a while, one of them would not want to, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, are we not going to do this? And so we would train, and we would run, and we'd push each other and go a little faster, and this and that, whatever. And so then the big day arrived. And there were 4 of us doing the cross-country race. Lauren, Chicho, me, and this kid, JD. And JD was going to try and set the record. And so they go, and he took off, and he won. Absolutely won. Like, he killed it. He ran so fast. And the 3 of us take off, and we're running down the hill. We're pacing each other. And I'm immediately like, whoa, we're running faster than we've ever run fast before. This seems a little aggressive. Why are we doing this? And we do the first third, and I was like, this is pretty good. I'm killing it. And we roll around, and what I didn't realize is the night before, it had rained so much in the mountains. We were in the Andes Mountains. And the dry riverbed had become like this rushing, raging torrent of a river. It would only happen 1 or 2 days a year because desert climate. It only rained 1 month of the year. Otherwise, it's totally dry. And it is a raging torrent. And my first thought was, race is over. We can't do this. And Chicho and Lauren, who had lived in South America longer than me, just jumped into the river and started running up the river. They were going to run that mile in the river because you couldn't run on the sides. All the cactuses, too many cactuses, bushes, and snakes and tarantulas and other stuff. Yeah, it was a wild, crazy place. And it was against the flow of so running against current. And it was super, like you couldn't see through. It was so muddy and so dirty and so nasty. And so I was like, shoot, well, I'm not going to be the one guy that doesn't do the race. And so the two of them jump in. They're running up against the water. I'm behind them, which actually kind of worked out good because you couldn't see. We were running kind of on the sides where it was only like this deep. And we couldn't see where the holes and the rocks were in the water, which meant every once in a while one of them would like fall or go down or whatever, and they'd be like, ooh, don't run there. So it kind of worked out good for me. We get to the end of this mile of running against the river, and I was like, oh, thank goodness we're finally, we had to climb this really, it was like 20 or 30 feet up, this cliff bank thing to get up onto the final third. And I was like, this is so good. This is going to be easy sailing the last mile. And I took one step and realized, oh no, because my sneakers were so soaking wet with the water. Like, have you ever run a mile and it feels like giant lead weights? And it was all uphill. And now we're just kind of going, and everybody's at their own pace. And I'm like, I'm gonna die. And I push, and I came around the corner for the final third, and there's the finish line. Everybody's like, woo! And I sprinted. Nobody could tell. Have you ever run and been like so tired that you're like, I'm going to do my last surge, and outwardly nobody sees any difference whatsoever? That was me. I came in last place by a few moments, not a lot, but it's my proudest athletic accomplishment because I worked so hard to get there, and then I didn't quit, and everything on the day went wrong, and I was like, and I still pushed through. And the reason why I did it, the reason why I finished the race that day, all of the different pieces, was because I had asked Lauren and Chicho to train with me, right? Like, they got me out there practicing ahead of time. On the day of the race, they jumped into the river. I wouldn't have. I would have been like, race is over. I'm going home. And it would have never occurred to this, this guy that was still an option. I love that I set a goal and I worked hard and I completed, because my goal was never to win the race. I knew I wasn't going to beat JD. JD went on to set a record the following year for the cross-country track, right? Like, I was never going to set the record. I was never going to beat him. But I wanted to finish well. I wanted to finish with pride and like not embarrass myself. And that I did. And the reason I say all that, right, is this idea that accountable friendships are a team sport. Lauren and Chicho's main job was to encourage me to keep going after my goal. And my main job was to encourage them to go after their goal, right? That accountability is not about power tripping. It's not about being judgmental. It's not about flexing on someone else. It's about, man, I genuinely want this person to have the best for them, and I'm going to encourage them to go after it. And sometimes I might see them doing something that hurts that goal, and I'm going to encourage them to stop doing that thing. I'm going to encourage them to get their focus back on God. There's 3 practical things I think we can do, and this is what I want to wrap up with. First thing is, choose your accountability friendships carefully. Right? Like, be intentional. Don't just pick random people to open up to and be like, hey, do you want to have this accountability related? Like, it's got to be someone that has the same values you do about God. They have to be serious about it as well, or they're not going to help you. They need to be somebody that you can trust, because accountability is a lot of vulnerability, and you don't want to tell someone something that's just going to put your business out there for everyone. Right? Like, then they don't actually care about you. They're not actually trying to encourage you to pursue God. They're just like, what's the tea? Let's see. So it needs to be someone you can trust, someone that shares your values, and someone that you're going to actually listen to, right? Like, Like getting an accountability, maybe your accountability partner should not be your little brother who you don't want telling you what to do, right? It needs to be somebody you're going to actually listen to. And secondly, choose to commit to the accountability relationship, right? Like, it doesn't do any good if you ask somebody to be an accountability partner, but deep down inside, you're like, I'm not really going to do this, so. Like, actually follow through on it, because then it's a win for both of you. Paul writes to the Philippians, I'm certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue his work until it's finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. Which is such amazing news, right? God is never done working on us. Jesus is never done working on you. Accountability is just one of these spiritual practices that help us be a part of this work that Jesus is doing on us. And so I want to challenge you guys. Think about accountability. If you don't have accountability in place, find someone. Challenge someone. Invite someone. And it doesn't even have to be like a, hey, I'm really struggling. Can you be my... It can be a, hey, do you want to pursue this together? Kind of like me going after that race goal of, hey, like, maybe I don't have something in this moment that I'm really struggling with, but I'd really like to form an accountability relationship with someone to help me pursue God so that when that happens, I've got somebody in my life feeding into that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you for Paul's writings. We thank you for these spiritual disciplines that you call us to. And I just ask that you'd help each one of us to pursue you in all of these ways, that we would have the time with you that Ben challenged us to last week, that we would have accountability relationships in our lives so that we can pursue you better, that you would help us to be the type of people that can be honest with each other, that we can be humble in receiving accountability and humble in giving accountability to others. For your glory and your name, Lord, amen.